Hey, what is up? I hope you're doing very well. Thanks for checking out this video. I have Mr. Keith Hathaway here. He's an attorney that I use quite extensively. Keith, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing very well, doing very well. Keith, we're going to go over just a couple of questions here and provide some useful information for the folks. So let's get to it, all right?
Sounds good.
Well, thank you for joining me here, Keith. I've used you pretty extensively in my real estate journey here, and your paralegal, Maureen, the other attorney, you guys have always been outstanding. Just super on the spot with questions. Even if I have like something that comes up on a Sunday, and I'm not promoting everyone do this to Mr. Keith, but because we work together so much, I know he's always there.
Even on weekends, I just try to keep it short so I can spend time with my family. But sometimes on the weekends, it's important to give that level of service so that people can sleep at night. Because if it's a Saturday night and they're really nervous about something, they don't have an answer to the question. If it can take me 3 or 4 minutes on a phone call in order to make them sleep for the next 2 nights until I can fix it on Monday, it's well worth the interruption.
That's a great perspective, Keith. I say that a lot. Everything is about perspective, and that's a good one right there. So I'd like to just ask a couple of questions here and get your perspective and your answer on those questions. So first off what are some common legal issues that you see home buyers often overlook during the purchasing process?
So there's a couple. I broke it up into 3. Number 1 is who's going to be on title. Number 2 is going to be specific to buying condominiums. And number 3 is going to be whether or not you're actually under contract and have obligations. So one thing that happens in Connecticut is there's certain counties that will have the attorneys draft up contracts after the agents do it. It's mostly Fairfield County, but it's a little bit of the bordering towns around Fairfield and Litchfield County that also use this practice. The problem being is the people signing the contracts don't understand that the first thing that they do sign with their agent is still a contract. So then they go to meet with the attorney and they want to change things, not realizing that the thing that they signed first is binding. And if the sellers don't want to change it, they don't have to change it. And the buyers would be stuck with the terms that they agreed to when they sat down with the realtor. So knowing that you're actually signing a contract is very important because you need to be well aware and willing to accept the fact that you are going to be bound to those terms. So that's number 1. Number 2 is going to be who will be on title. Now, a lot of people think that, oh, I'll just add it later, or I'll just put my wife on or my husband on afterwards, or it's probably something really easy. But they don't realize that if they're using a mortgage company to purchase the property, that mortgage company is going to underwrite the loan with who's on the contract. So if the wife puts her name on the contract because she just happens to be the one that was there at the showing and wanted to get the deal done and doesn't add her husband to the contract, the mortgage company is going to draft all of the documents for the mortgage only in the wife's name. So then the husband will show up at the closing and say, wait, why am I not on title? They'll say, we didn't know you were going to be on title. We thought everything was just her. So really important to know this because the mortgage company does not want you changing things afterwards, and they'll cause problems if you try to. And then finally, the third one was going to be full understanding of the condo documents. Condominium documents are a package of rules and regulations that they give you prior to purchasing a property that happens to be a condominium association. It's very important that buyers of condominiums know what the rules and regulations are going to be and that they're willing to be bound by them, because a majority of all the owners is the one who decides to maintain those rules or regulations or any budget or any expenses. And if the person buying disagrees with what the majority says they're still going to be bound by those rules and regulations and that budget, even if they don't approve of it. So those are the 3 most important things that I think buyers overlook or aren't fully aware of prior to purchasing property.
Yeah, those are great points. At least 2 of them I think I cover with my clients. On the Brook Group, we're trained for a buyer's consultation, and all of our clients should be aware, and definitely all my clients are aware that the purchase contract is a binding contract, right? but I could see out in the industry in general that may not be common knowledge for all the buyers getting involved. And that's a really interesting point. And with the condo thing, yeah, if I'm showing condos, I try to make sure people understand about the HOA. It is one of the things you sacrifice for the ability to be in a condo and get into something nicer at a lower price point. You know, you have
and also not have to do the maintenance.
Right. Yeah, very cool. So could you explain the implications of not having a clear title and how buyers can ensure their title is clear before purchasing?
Absolutely. So let's start off with what is a clear title. A clear title is when you purchase a property and you are the owner, the only owner, and there are no other liens or claims to the property other than anything you allow on the property. For example, the standard clear title is James purchasing a property, and then James simultaneously with the purchase recording a mortgage on the land records. So if it's just James as the owner and James's mortgage on there, that's a clean title because everything is as it should be according to James's wishes. When it's not a clean title is if, for example, there was the tax lien and the person that James bought it from didn't pay their taxes and didn't pay the tax lien at closing. Then that tax lien clouds James's title to the property and will interfere with his ability to refinance and sell the property later on until that's cleared up. So it's really important to get those items cleared up prior to closing. And the way to do that is to have an attorney do the closing who hopefully specializes in real estate transactions, which will, of course, mean that they will use a title searcher to research the title and see if there's any tax liens and see if there's any other claims to the property from a probate estate, a judgment lien, a tax lien, anything to that effect, so that the buyer's attorney can notify the seller's attorney, hey, this needs to be cleared up prior to us taking title to the property, and ensure at the closing that it has in fact been done.
Sounds like a thing that is commonly practiced that you do all the time. And yep. Something that if you don't do, the potential ramifications seem huge.
They are. You could be stuck with somebody else's mortgage, somebody else's bill, or maybe the person that sold it to you wasn't really the person that owned it. You just gave them money and they gave you nothing but a blank piece of paper that's not worth the paper it's printed on.
Wow, I can't even imagine some of the nightmares that could result from an improper title search. That's astounding.
Yep, and it actually has happened here in the state of Connecticut. There's a case that's growing in infamy down in Fairfield where a person out of Long Island, doctor out of Long Island practicing, but grew up in Fairfield, Connecticut, had a plot of land that was in his family for generations. And he came home to visit his friends from Fairfield one day to find somebody building a house on his plot of land. I think it was somewhere around a $1.5 million house. And he promptly stepped onto the grounds and said, hey, guys, what are you doing here? And they said, well, we're building a house for the owner. He said, no, you're not, because I own it. So the person who did the closing didn't do the search properly.
Oh.
And they messed up. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
That's a big boo-boo. That's a $1.5 million boo-boo.
Holy crap. How far along were they in the house construction?
They were almost done.
Oh, my God. I can't even imagine. So is that settled and done, or is that still like an ongoing?
No. Oh, that's ongoing. That was about 6 months ago.
Oh, I got to find that and keep track of that. That's a very interesting story.
Yeah, it's a case I like to refer to clients when they say, oh, why do I have to hire a lawyer? Can't I just do this myself? And I say, yeah, you technically could do it yourself. But do you want to take the chance that you make these mistakes? Or do you want to pay a few $100s to make sure somebody does it right?
Well, cool, Keith. Thank you for that interesting title. The title search is just so important. So another question here, and I don't know if I know the answer to this. I don't think I do. What are the most significant legal changes in real estate law over the past year or so that buyers and sellers should be aware of?
I'll mention two. One is remote notarization. In this age of technology, everyone wants to be able to just be at home and have something notarized or e-sign something. And that often works in a lot of situations. But when it comes to notarization, much of the country has adopted remote notarization. Connecticut has not. They've not actually completed the process of adopting it. So people misunderstand that because you can do some things by e-sign, that you can do all things by e-sign. That's not true. You can't notarize in Connecticut that way and have a binding legal document. The state just hasn't approved it yet. And a lot of people are assuming as such, and they're wrongfully assuming. So they're making other plans or going on vacation, or I've had a few leave the country and then have to go to a consulate somewhere to get the consulate to notarize a document because they assumed we could accept e-notarization and we can't. So that's number one. The other one is powers of attorney. Everyone knows what a power of attorney is in general, that it lets you do something for somebody else. Now, the issue is a couple of years ago, powers of attorney, the statute changed, and it made it so that powers of attorney, in fact, I'll use the phrase go stale. They're ineffective after a certain period of time in order to convey title and do other legal activities for somebody else. So it's really important that once every year or two, a power of attorney is updated. Often people will come and want to sign for their mom or their dad for the power of attorney from a decade ago, and it's no longer valid. So it's really important that people ask these questions beforehand and find out what the current status of the power of attorney statute is so that they know and can ensure that the power of attorney they have is in fact effective.
I had no idea. So it's not that there is a definitive end date on the document that establishes the power of attorney. It's the fact that there's a Connecticut statute limiting the length of time.
Exactly.
Wow. I don't think that's common knowledge. Great point.
No, it isn't. And it's changed about 2 years ago, I think, and it's created a lot of issues. The most common one being exactly that, a child has power of attorney for an aging parent and they want to finally sell the property and come to find out they can't.
Yeah. That time to figure that out, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's an interesting one. How should buyers and sellers handle the discovery of undisclosed problems after closing?
All right. Here's my advice. Number one, stay calm. Okay. There are often, depending on the situation, resolutions. It'll depend on the severity of it. Many of the problems, like something that pops up on title afterwards, somebody misfiling a document or misfiling a lien against a property that the prior owner no longer owns, those can be fixed. So number one, stay calm. Number two, pull in your agent and your attorney and pull them together to find out what the actual problem is. Often people will get a document in the mail and they'll think it's a problem only to find out that it's just a notice and nothing's wrong. So in the most common situation where it gets a little bit more difficult is, for example, there's a disclosure that says, is there water in the basement or not? It's very, very common, especially up here in the Northeast. Certain seasons after the winter thaw and in the fall, people's basements flood. And there's a disclosure on the Connecticut required disclosures that says, is there water in the basement? If somebody says no, you rely on that and you think there's no water in the basement. And then you only go to find out later on that maybe the seller wasn't exactly accurate and maybe they had water in the basement before. So this is a tough problem because you have to prove that they intended to defraud you and they knew about it and on purpose hid it from you so that they didn't have to do anything. It requires legal expense, and it's a tough case to win. So really important, try not to miss anything before closing. Once you're done, it's pretty much done. So this brings me to one comment that I think actually could resolve it. The most common issues, which is property condition issues of the physical property after closing. Get the best inspector you can. I've had too many people cheap out on an inspector and they get the guy who is maybe he's a carpenter or he's a plumber and he's like, he knows a lot of stuff and he's only charging me $250. I think inspections are going for like $500 or $600 nowadays. More than that. Okay. Yeah. So that's the significant savings for a lot of people. And I've had this happen probably 4 or 5 times in my career so far. They miss something like the roof and it's a $20,000 fix. Or they're a carpenter and they miss something in the plumbing or in the heating system. That's a $5,000 fix because they wanted to save $200. it's not worth it. I've actually had family members. The example about the roof was from a family member that cheaped out on inspection, hired the sloppiest inspector they could find at the lowest price because they were being thrifty, and only to find out that for $200 they lost 20,000. So find out that stuff in advance.
Yeah, and that's why it's so critical when I'm referring people and professionals and other vendors that they're really top quality. And
Exactly.
I always tell my clients, look, don't skip the inspection. I know it's a stronger offer if you could offer without an inspection. And I'll entertain the thought on the occasion of doing a pre-offer inspection with the same level of property inspector. But that's few and far between. In all, even if you lose the house, it's such a risky thing to go without an inspection. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. And those are good points.
To your point about like who you recommend and only recommending good people, I always tell clients, go with who your realtor recommends. Why? Because your realtor has vetted these people. And especially if your realtor has a relationship with whatever vendor, be it attorney, lender, inspector, insurance person, there's a vested interest for that realtor to only give good people. Because if that realtor gives a crappy attorney, a subpar inspector, guess what? There's going to be a problem. And when there's a problem, that realtor doesn't get any referrals. So it's in their best interest to give you only the best people. Go with who they suggest. Don't go searching in the phone book. You might get somebody good, but you have a good chance of getting somebody bad.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Keith, thanks for giving all this information. I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll get in touch again and do another one of these in the future. Look, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best phone number for them to reach out? What's your office number?
The office number is 203-288-1333. Again, that's 203-288-1333.
What's your email address?
That would be Keith, Keith, at gcghlaw.com. Again, that's Keith at gcghlaw.com.
And the name of the firm?
Camberdella, Cipriano, Gottlieb, and Hathaway. Just remember Hathaway.
All right. Awesome. Very accommodating. The whole staff is outstanding. Reach out. I'll put the information in the description as well. Thank you so much for checking this video out, and have a great day.